So, this was a story that was told by a lot of students at my high school back in 2016. There was this one mailman that used to go around by my high school. His name was Walter, and at this point, he had been doing his job as a mailman for over 10 years, and he had done this as a little side job while his wife works as a teacher at a school. It was at the other side of town, so Walter often did mail deliveries, most of them being bills, flyers, etc. Occasionally, once in a while, he would get a package delivery, but most of the time was just the main stuff. Now, it had been a long and strenuous day for Walter at the time, so this was around late summer of 2016. He was in the middle of his usual route when he stopped at what appeared to be a house. Now, she had her mailbox there, and the woman sounded very comforting, and she looked to be seeming to be alluring. Appeared to be in her late 40s, and the woman had asked him if he could help her with something inside her house. Walter agreed, following as if he were drawn to her while taking her package. But when Walter followed the woman into the house, the moment he stepped in, he felt a chill in the air and an eerie darkness loomed over him. No matter which way he looked, the darkness seemed to be surrounding him. That is when Walter started to feel something suspicious and uneasy, and fear began to take over. His heart raced and beads of sweat covered his forehead. He searched for the woman, but she was disappeared in the house. Eventually, something thing had happened when he ended up backing away from the house when he stumbled upon something that made his skin crawl. He noticed the woman was near the window, but it wasn't the same woman he had followed inside. This woman was much older, and her face seemed stained with pain and sorrow. She then stared at him with a mix of rage and hatred. Before Walter could even back away, the woman started out slowly raised her arm, pointed at him before violently leading her finger into a circular motion, of attempting to have him enter the house. Eventually, that's when Walter felt a wave of terror and he ran to the car, fiddling with the keys in a hurry to get out of there. However, though, once he had got there in the car, he called the police and let himself locked in while the woman started screaming while trying to attempt to open the door. He had all the doors locked and he kept on going more and more, and this is when Walter ended up praying to God, hope that the police would hurry. Before the woman could get anything to smash the windows, the police pulled up at the house, and that's when Walter and the police searched the house. However, though, the woman was gone, as if she had just vanished into thin air. Still to this day, whenever he was out doing mail deliveries, Walter avoids passing that house. He doesn't even know if that woman is still there or not, or what she had planned on doing, but he couldn't really trust the fact that he could still feel the evil aurora emanating from it. He doesn't even want to imagine what would the alternative had happened and be if he had gone into that house and never made it out that night. You know the stranger danger thing that parents taught us when we were kids? Yeah, I was taught that when I was a kid, and many parents have taught their kids the dangers of strangers, basically what the stranger could possibly be. However, this wasn't really something, but this was definitely something that happened to a friend of mine that used to live in the same neighborhood as I did back in 2009 or something. I can't remember exactly, but this story was told by Jack. Now, Jack had been a mailman for years and knew all the residents by name. Little did he know the townspeople were hiding a sinister secret, of course. Of course, this was around this time when he was living in a small town, and sun had begun to set behind the trees as it was one of his last delivery jobs of the night. Jack had noticed the post office had been unusually quiet for the past couple days. Now, a few people did see seemed to manage to get strange glares from the locals when he passed by them off the street. The feeling of unease lingered in the air, but he quickly dismissed it as his paranoia. Just as Jack was prepared to turn onto the street, where he had to deliver a package, he appeared a loud noise from behind him. He turned to see a mail truck speeding off in the opposite direction. His heart sank as he realized what had just happened. The mail truck was stolen by someone. And of course, Jack raced after the truck as fast as his mail truck legs could carry him, but the theft was too far. Then suddenly he was blinded by the light of the deadlights by another vehicle, an unmarked van with tinted windows. It was then that Jack had realized he had stumbled onto something far more sinister than he had ever realized. The van drove off, only barely missing a couple of small children walking along the street. Jack honestly knew he had to act quickly or the children would be abducted. With his tremendous effort, he took a little bit more consideration, as this small town does have some crimes that happen but don't really happen often. He forced his truck to go into faster than ever as it could. He was able to catch up to the van just in time. Before it was able to make it escape with its precious cargo, he was able to stop it and apprehend the driver. It turns out that the driver had been wearing a mask and disguise himself, as he had been planning to kidnap some children in the street. Thankfully, Jack was able to save the day and the children returned safely to their families. Although the police had inspected the area and about the guy who was trying to kidnap the children, it turns out that this man had been selling illegal stuff involving children. I'm not going to say what it is, but he had a history of child predating on it, and he had done some really disgusting stuff. He was arrested and sent to jail, and obviously this was really glad, as Jack was then always a hero to the townspeople in his place. No matter how strange or unsettling their secret was, he'd risk his life and the mail truck to save 2 innocent children. That was something no one would ever forget, but he always wondered, why was this man kidnapping kids and doing some god-awful things? But this honestly was definitely really weird. But of course, this was an experience that Jack would never forget. It still lingers to him to this day, and of course, this was honestly something that he had never, ever had to encounter before, but he had encountered some really shady people, but this one does take the prize. So, this was about maybe 2 years ago, and this was around the time when the global pandemic was happening. There was this one woman that used to be a high school student at a high school that was about 2 hours from where I was living at. Now, well, of course, I still live in the same location. This woman named Karen had been expecting a package for a long time. She had ordered something on Amazon, and I can't remember what it was, but she had been wanting to get a package for a while. She'd been waiting over a week, and the package had not come, so she thought of calling Amazon about if the package were to get lost in the mail or something. Just as she was about to do that, a doorbell rang, and she arrived at the door. The mailman was an older man, wearing a uniform that she did not recognize. He tipped his hat and handed her a package with a smile. Karen was about to question the mailman, but he ended up going back to where he was. It was obvious that he must have been in a hurry or something. Now, Karen then tore away at the packaging, but that was when the package, she realized, did not have any return address. Eventually, it was completely anonymous, making her confused. She began to feel uneasy creep inside of her as she wondered who sent it. Unsure of what to do, she decided to phone the cops. When they arrived at her house, Karen explained the situation and they took the package away to investigate. Now, a few days later, the police had called Karen to inform her that the mailman was in fact a drug dealer. He was apparently dressed up as a mailman, and he had been dropping off illegal substance in packages to unsuspecting people. Of course, Karen was horrified by the news. Her heart was pounding as she recalled the strange man who handed her the package. What's really disturbing and bothering Karen, though, is that this man has not been caught. But, of course, that was just that. From then on, Karen was always checking when receiving packages and checked the return address all the time, as she was determined not to open up a package like that again. Just an update, back in 2023, the man obviously was caught as a woman who had a security camera dropped off a package with no return address. Eventually, this man was arrested and was sentenced to a couple years in jail. Honestly, this was definitely something that Karen would never forget. At this time, this was a really messed up story that Karen had to tell. She's just lucky that he's in prison. The fact that he was around doing this to other people for a while and hasn't been caught, it honestly comes to show that karma is a bitch. So this happened to a college student named Michael when he was about maybe 18, 19 years old. Michael was a pretty socially awkward guy, and he never really talked to anybody except for his family members, two of his closest best friends, and even his family members and his professors from school. Now, during the time he had been socially awkward, which he mainly turned to the attention on the internet. Now, at this time though, he had been receiving mail from college with a bunch of from his family, like stuff that he ordered and etc. There was this one girl that he met named Kirsten. Kirsten was a really manipulative girl, but of course that was when he found out much later. Kirsten was very sweet and kind, and he always really liked her. Michael and her had done some talking on an app which was Facebook, and they both really hit it off pretty well. She eventually found his other social media accounts, and Michael really enjoyed that. They started talking for a while, but then it wasn't until a month later when he noticed something was really off about Kirsten. Keep in mind that this was around 2012, and Kirsten started being very manipulative. She told him to block certain people on the internet, to which he had no idea why. She came up with lies saying that she didn't like that person because she's a girl, or didn't like this person because of what they did or stuff. Michael started to catch on a bit, as his friends from college said that Kirsten then has been known to manipulate them, and she has done this to other men as well. This honestly got him really confused, and he was also told that Kirsten has a lot of mental issues as well as anger issues, and will rage in no matter what. Eventually, this was getting Michael to try to talk to Kirsten into calming down one night when she had a mental breakdown, when she said, "Don't hang up," "Don't block me," etc. This manipulative behavior only got worse as always. She was the kind of person who liked to get her way no matter what the cost. Of course, Michael was her friend who was online in college, refused to let her get in her way when she got angry. She begged and pleaded for a while. It wasn't until Michael finally blocked her from all of his social media accounts. Of course, that was the thing that he did because he couldn't handle Kirsten's manipulative behavior. He had eventually considered on calling the police for cyber harassment and stuff that she did to him, as well as a couple other people, but he decided to let it go, thinking that maybe she'll give up eventually. This was fast forward about maybe a week later. It was around the time when finals was about going on, and this was around the time when final exams were coming up, and Michael was basically on his computer studying while taking some notes just to keep in mind that they could be answers for any kind of exams. Turns out he got a really weird email, and he ended up looking over and seeing the email. The email had stated a lot was from Kirsten. She wasn't the type of person to let things go. She did some digging, found out Michael's personal information such as IP address, his friends and family's list, etc. She had said, "Unblock me now, bastard." As soon as he said that, she said that Michael ended up reporting the email to the authorities, and they had said that just to block her and see what happens, since that was pretty much all fake. Of course, it wasn't, as you will find out later. Now, she was determined to get her revenge that way, as she has done this to other college students as well. With the information she had, she was able to track down Michael's address, and she sent him a special package to which he had no idea how that happened. It turns out that it was on a warm summer morning, at least maybe a month later, when Michael got out of school for after exams for the summer. He was basically playing video games when he ended up hearing a knock on his door. He opened the door to find a mailman standing before him, holding an anonymous package. He thanked the mailman and quickly slammed the door closed. Of course, that was the case because Michael had ordered a game, and he thought that this might have been the game that he wanted. He'd been waiting for at least a week when he ordered it to come into the mail, but when he opened it up, it was a big mistake. When he opened the package, Michael was shocked to find a bloody severed limb inside. He had no idea who would do such a thing, but then he began to panic in the inside, but in the outside he was calm. Gathering his thoughts, he remembered Kirsten's threat that she would make him regret blocking her. That's when he started to put the pieces together and knew who he was dealing with, a disturbed individual. He had brought the limb to the police station and they investigated, and it came to a light that Kirsten was the culprit behind the limb. After seeing the evidence, Kirsten was reprehended. That is when Michael had to go to court and told of all the wrong things that Kirsten had done to him and to all the manipulation she put him through. Even throughout the other high school and college kids that she had done this to. It obviously found out that this is not the first time she's done it. She has done this more than once, to which it was a shocker to the whole court, including Michael's parents. At the end of the court session, Kirsten received the sentence that she deserved. While Michael was relieved that justice was served, but the experience will stay with him for the rest of his life. It's just a reminder to never underestimate the lengths of how people will go in their order to get their way. However, though, this definitely was pretty shocking. Michael had to change everything, such as his address, phone number, etc. He had everything changed after what Kirsten did, and he had no idea what Kirsten wanted to do that with him for, but this was definitely something that he will never forget. He is glad that Kirsten is not in public anymore doing this to other people, although she is being held in a pretty good prison where she could be kept a close eye on.